Onto the shoulders. I am going to be trying to make something new. Because of the way I built the ball joint onto the head and how it's in the neck now, I have more free state. I'm going to try and implement a ball joint here, which connects to a piece here, and that piece will contain another ball joint, which can lift the shoulders. So in theory, I can move this piece up and move the shoulders up as well, so that I get more shoulder mobility. This shoulder is going to have a ball joint attached to it, but you don't need this, and you can just have a pin in the joint going into the body so that it can just go up and down. But having a ball joint, I feel, helps add a lot of movement. So that's what I'm going to be working with. Now this is what the shoulder joint that I've been using for the most part looks like. So over here, we have the main shoulder joint, the pin inside with the ring, an attachment point, and then a ball joint. But you don't need to stick with the ball joint. You can just have this pin extend outwards more and then just connect to the body like that. You can also make it longer so that, in theory, you can get more range out of your shoulders. This on the left is what the shoulder joints I use look like, and this is a type of shoulder joints that other figures use, like the Mayfix figures and this Win Toys figure. So if I pop this out, you can see it has a tiny ball joint over there that extends a bit, and it has a socket over here, and this ring part can actually come out. It is a separate piece. So I can move the shoulder around like that, move it up this far. Unfortunately, not that far back. If you want to just have a shoulder joint with a pin protruding outwards, it can work like this right here. This is Marvel Legends Symbiote Spider-Man, and as you can see, the shoulder can't move up or down, it can only rotate this way. And similar to this piece over here, this one has sort of a hinge that allows it to move forward and back. Now I'm ready to start working on the upper chest and the shoulders. I'm going to be attempting to make this double shoulder ball joint system. So we have a ball joint in here, and it would also be able to go forward and back a bit. We'd also have another ball joint here that will give the same amount of motion and allow the arm to rotate around on the side. I've already made these shoulder joints for a tutorial that I filmed a bit ago. If you want to learn how I made these, go watch that video, which I'll link down below. I do have these attachment points built into the joint. What I'm going to do is turn those into ball joints. Then I will make sockets out of these that will sit in this piece right here, which will have its own ball joint, and I will make a socket for that, which will attach somewhere in the middle of the chest, and that will also connect to this attachment point at the bottom of the neck for this figure. So I'm just going to build those ball joints now, which I also have a tutorial for that I will link in the description. We got two pieces that require ball joints, and here is what I have so far. So over here we got a shoulder joint with a little piece of the arm. We got a ball and socket over here that I made. And for this one, I got the same thing, but instead of a paper ball joint, I used a epoxy sculpt and some hot glue, just because I was feeling lazy. And also I made this like 3 weeks ago as a test and didn't want them to go to waste. Okay, I got this shoulder joint with the ball and socket already attached, and this one already has an arm piece attached to it. The arm piece is about 3/4 of an inch long. So I'm just going to be making this part for this as well. How I'm going to do that is by making two round cylinders. So basically, this is a shoulder joint. I'm going to be making something that sits onto the shoulder like this. As you can see, there's a slight curve here that will help maintain stability for when you're posing the shoulder. It's hard to tell, but I had to mark the edges of the shoulder strip, but these are two different sizes. That's gonna give it a slight curve, just so the ball joint sits more securely onto the arm. I'm just going to take a cylindrical object like this wooden dowel that is around the same size as the arm that I want to make. Then I'm just going to roll both strips into cylinders. I want the smaller one to go on the inside. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it to where the paper meets the paper and make sure that there's no overlapping. So I'm going to mark this right here. As you can see, that's pretty much where it is. No overlapping parts, no gaps. I'm going to do the same thing with this other slightly longer piece. I'm going to start by gluing it somewhere here, while making sure one of the edges of the longer strip touches the edge of the shorter strip. It should look like that. I'm going to put a bit of glue here, put this right here. I'm going to put it back in the dowel, and then I'm going to glue around until this longer strip of paper meets itself again, and that's where I'll cut it. I'm going to hold it down as tightly as possible. Here it is now, so I'll mark where that meets itself. There we go, and I'll glue the rest on. As you can see on the inside, that step over there it's where we're going to put our hot glue, and it should attach securely to the shoulder joint. Now, before attaching this, I'm going to mark out areas not to put glue in, mainly this right here, because we don't want this middle part to get stuck onto the arm. It's on the other side as well. And we're going to mark out where we're going to attach this. Now, if you're working on two of them at the same time, you can double check to make sure that they're going to be the same height. Then I'm going to take my shoulder joint and I'm going to make some tiny cuts on the line just so I can have an easier time attaching this piece onto this. I'm going to cut like this way as well, and I'm going to try and peel off the outer paper shell because I want to expose the bit of hot glue, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. Then I'll start melting the exposed hot glue over here. Then I'll start putting hot glue. I'm going to put a generous amount this time. Push it onto the shoulder and leave it to dry. And if you did everything right, it should be solid and you should be able to rotate it and play around with it. Here's the joint after drying. There we go. So now I'm going to be making this triangle piece that will be attached to this ball joint and to this socket right here. This piece is just experimental. You absolutely do not need to make your figure shoulder this complicated. Having your shoulder connected to a ball joint is just enough to give it a good range of mobility. You can move forward this far, back this far, up this far, and down this far as well as to rotate. This is just because I like giving my figures better articulation than the last. So if you've already added ball joints to your shoulders and you don't want to make something as experimental as this, then just skip ahead. Now, I'm going to trace 4 copies of this, but it's not going to involve this joint. It's only going to be up to there. Also a tip, if you're going to be making tiny templates like these for your figures, I suggest putting some painter's tape on the back just so it's slightly more durable. And you can mark the back as well. And there we go. Now I'm just going to go ahead and cut this up. Alright, now that I got these pieces, what I'm going to do is super glue them onto each other, just so I have one solid piece. So it's going to be the left part to the left and right part to the right. Now, do be careful when you do this because having super glue on your skin is not fun. I'm also going to be super gluing the edges just so it's stronger there. Now that I have this, I'm going to first put the socket here, like that. I'm going to lay down where I think the ball joint will lie. So somewhere over here, and I'll double check here real quick. Then I'm going to take a socket and I'm just going to glue it here. I got super glue here. Then I'll just put this right there. And I'm just going to add some more glue over here, as well as trimming this exposed piece off. I'm gonna take a knife and cut this off. And right now, this is the mobility we got. So here's the normal sitting position. Here we have a shrug, and here we have a lower shoulder. This is the normal side view, moving it forward and moving it back. Right now, the shrug could only reach to this high, but I'm hoping with the extra ball joint that I'm going to put here, that I could at least reach a shrug that is this high. Now to make space for this other ball joint, I'm just going to cut a tiny area over here. I want it to sit right in the middle of this. So I'll do this and I'll cut it like that. Take some tweezers and just pry that out. Now I got some space here. Now I'm going to double check with my reference piece and they look pretty much identical. I'm just going to make some adjustments and I'm going to be hot gluing this into here. So I'll come back once I've done that. And then I'll make some notches over here. I'm gonna start by putting some hot glue on the notches. Then I'll shove this in this little area that I got. I'm going to be mindful because that hole is exposing the ball joint connecting to the arm. While that's drying, I'm going to move this around as well. And here we go. It's not exactly like this, but it should be good enough. I'll make adjustments while I work on it. Coming back, this is what I have so far. This is the natural resting pose, is the extended pose of this piece at least, and that is me extending the shoulder. As you can see, it can reach up to this high now, which is actually right where this mark is. Would you look at that? Let's go! Woo! Now I'm going to be making the same pieces for this other shoulder. Now I have the other shoulder over here. And if we lay it down flat down here, this is what it looks like. I'm going to add the head in place as well. My current plan is to glue these 3 together. I'm going to put some hot glue over here. And then essentially I'm just going to fuse them, trying to keep them as lined up as possible. And to secure it, I just cut a long strip from some spare poster board, and I'm just going to wrap it around this. Put some more glue around here in the middle, then carefully put this here, and I'm going to hold it as tight as I can. And I'll just leave this to dry. Now I'm going to try attaching this neck over here. And I'm going to do that by making a tiny hole here. Then I'm going to dig it out. I'm going to put a generous amount of super glue in here. Now, if you're going to do it this way, I say take off the ball joints just because it's going to get warm in here. And if this warms up and the ball joints are in here, there's a chance that they will loosen up. I'll put this over here, leave that to dry for a bit. If I want this to be more stable, I could also add more strips of paper to go around and cover this area. And I'm going to try and do that. I'll leave this middle piece to dry. I took the arms from V9 and I put them here and they fit perfectly, and this is how she looks so far. Yeah, it's a mess, but I'll cover it up later. But this is a default sitting pose of the shoulder. This is me moving the shoulder to its maximum height, and then this is me moving the ball joint even higher. I got so much more range. I can make her actually shrug. Huh. Next part is I'm going to make another ball and socket joint, and I'm going to add it here at the bottom because that is how we're going to attach the stomach part. So I already got some ball joints over here that I'm making, and I'm just going to make the ball and socket joints off camera. I'm going to attach this ball joint that I made down here. So I'll be measuring where this is going to reach. I'm going to do the same thing I did here and cut a hole down here and secure it with some strips of poster paper. If I look to the side view, it's going to be at a slight angle. So I'm going to place it like that. I'm going to go ahead and make notches past this line I drew. Then I'm going to cut a hole down here. I'll go do a test fit to see how far this can go in. And it can go in this much. After double checking, it's almost there. I'm just going to make some minor adjustments and I'll come back once I've put everything together. Put some hot glue in here, then I'm just going to gently shove it in here, making sure it has that angle that I want. Putting more hot glue in here. Gonna cut up some strips of poster paper, put some hot glue in here, cut this piece off, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. And I'll just secure it with a strip around. Now, all that's left for the upper chest is to create the outer shell. I suggest that you only do this once you are 100% sure that everything in here is to your liking. Now would be the perfect time to make any final adjustments to the tightness of any joints, to reposition any parts, and whatnot. Now that I'm finally on the part where I make the outer shell for the upper chest, I'm going to start by making an oval shape that will sit in here, right where the attachment point of this ball joint is. If we take a look at V9 over here, pop off the upper torso and take a look underneath, you'll see that there's a piece over here. This piece is here so that it can support this entire part and keep it solid. I'm going to cut an oval shape that is this long and around this wide. I'm gonna go ahead and cut some poster paper. Since this is twice the length of this, I'm just going to fold this in half. I'm going to measure it out and cut this like that to trace out a vaguely oval shape, kind of like that. Then I'm going to try and mark the middle, and I'm going to make a line on either side of this. Then I'll cut these out. Then I'll cut this over here, and then cut the middle part. Then I'm going to hot glue these two pieces together. Now I'll do a test fit over here, so I'll just slide this inside, and there we go. Now I'm just going to make this twice as thick because that's my preference. Here's that support piece that's twice as thick now. Having the support piece this thick allows us to have more surface to use for the hot glue. I'm going to take these arms off. I'm going to do a test measure. Since I'm satisfied with it, I'm just going to start hot gluing this here. Just put a bit of hot glue here and slide this in, and making sure that this is perpendicular to the attachment point of the ball joint. And if you want to secure these together, just put some hot glue in here, take an extra piece of material and glue it onto here, and just clean this up a bit like that. Now the next piece I'm going to make is this piece over here that will go in between the neck and the shoulders. For this one, I just used one strip of poster paper that went around like this. It was glued to here, and it just wrapped around the socket of this ball joint over here. For this one, because I'm making a newer shoulder joint, I'm going to have to go with a different design. Right now, I'm currently thinking of super gluing some strips of paper to itself that are about this thin and just having it like this. It would also sit around like this when viewed from the side. I cut out some thin strips of poster paper and I doubled them up and super glued them together, and I made 2 of them. So I'm going to make these tiny blocks that will sit here at the front and here at the back, just to assist with positioning those strips. I cut out some poster paper, just got a few pieces here. All I'm going to do is just hot glue them to each other. I want them to be chunky, and once it's dry like this, I can just glue that horizontally onto this bottom piece over here. I'm going to also go ahead and do that onto the back as well, like that. Now I have a place to glue this piece onto. Since this piece is going to be quite fragile, since it has to be this thin to make space for this piece right here, I'm going to wrap this part up with some clear tape. Around 1 inch, lay it down like that, then I'll just tape this on. I'll do the same for the other side. That should help with the durability by a bit. Alright, I've got both pieces taped up and cut to size. Now I'm just going to try and glue them on. I'm going to start by putting a bit of hot glue here, then I'll take the correct one, proceed to put it here, and just hope I didn't mess up. And I'll glue it to the back side as well. I want to make sure that this end is centered and that this is touching the neck while the neck is straight. I'm also keeping this upper shoulder in just so I know how far it can go before it can't make it through anymore. And there we go. Now I'll go ahead and do the other side. And there we go. This is what it looks like on the side so far. She can actually look down that far. Nice. Because the ball joint sits inside the neck and not outside, these strips of paper don't interfere with the neck rotation. Now I'm going to build out a shell that will cover the front and the back part. Something that will probably help is if I use this strip of thick painter's tape and just lay it down flat here. Now this will let me draw on it while still letting me see some of the bits inside. So what I can do is take a pen and just mark out some general areas that I want to keep and want to cover. Now I can take this, put it over a piece of poster paper, and just cut it out and test it here to see if it can fit. And if I need to, I can revise that shape until I come up with one that I'm satisfied with. Alright, this is the shape that I have after refining it. As you can see with this tiny bit of tape, sketch I had was uneven, so I had to actually put some tape over here, draw over that, and then I cut that around. And if we put it over here, it just barely covers the gap between the neck and the chest unless she looks up, but it's not enough to hinder mobility when looking down. This shape also allows the arm to reach like this. What I'm going to do is cut this out on a different piece of poster paper, just so I have a good version of this. For the neck part, I'm actually going to extend it up a bit, just so I have more leeway when I'm putting that on. There we go. Now I'm going to cut this up inside the line. To make this more durable, I'm going to put some painter's tape at the back. I could have actually done this much earlier before cutting it, just to make it easier. There we go. I'm going to round this up a bit. If I put it over here, it should look like that. I'm gonna score where this piece will meet these places where I'm gonna put hot glue in, just so it can attach easier. That's going to be around here and here. Now I can put hot glue here and here and just put this on. Now for the breasts, there's usually different ways you can make it. For V9, I just stack pieces of paper onto a dome-like shape and then covered it with hot glue. just so I could get the shape I desired. For V12, I just put some hot glue on the inside and then used foam clay on the outside just so I can get the shape easier. For this one, however, I took a marble and I covered it in foam clay. Now what I'm going to do is cut this in half and see if I can use that. Now I just have to adjust the shape and glue this in here somehow. I'm gonna go sketch out where these are gonna go. I'm gonna take some super glue, then a toothpick. I'm also gonna take some tweezers, and I'm just going to carefully put some super glue around the edges of this and put it here. There we go. I'm just going to go ahead and do the other side off camera. I did refine the breast piece a bit. I did cover the entire piece in foam after remaking the base piece, and I glued this back on. Now that I have the front part done, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the back side. Put a piece of painter's tape over here. There we go. I'm going to do 2 passes of this. So the first one is to make the solid template. Then I'll check the fit. Here's the template of the back that I made. Here's the piece that I'm going to attach to the figure. As you can see, I drew some lines over here, and this is actually slightly bigger than my template. That's because I'm going to try and cut and fold it, just so the back curves a bit. Cut a triangle shape right down here, and it's going to be similar to this one right here. If I were to bend it, it should curve like that. This is what I would want on the back of my figure. To lock in the curve of this, I'm going to cut this area out, and I'm going to cut out a strip along this cut I made. I'm gonna go take some tweezers and take these out of here. Then I'm going to take some scrap paper. I'm going to cut out a strip that is about as thin as the strips that I cut out on the back piece. So something like that. And I'm going to take some super glue and some toothpicks. I'm just going to use that to curve these together. Put some on the back here. Use a toothpick to spread it out. Then put the strip of paper on one side and then fold the other side in until they're all touching like that. Hold it in place for a couple of seconds and just cut this off. Then I'll do the same thing on this other side right here. Now I get a nice curve over here. I'm just gonna score the back here. There we go. And I'm just going to press this onto here. And I'm just gonna do some final adjustments off camera and I'll be back. All that's missing is the side pieces and a tiny little shoulder piece similar to this one right here to give the shoulder some shape. I'm gonna do the painter's tape step again. Okay, then I'm gonna mark out the areas that'll be facing the front just so I have a reference point. So I'm just going to get this onto the figure like that. I'm actually going to take the tape off, going to take some strips of paper. I'm gonna cut this by making sure that it's longer than my side piece over here. Then I'm gonna cut these 2 in half lengthwise. Alright, after I cut up the pieces, I made sure to clear out some slots. I'm gonna go get some super glue and use my toothpick to put some super glue on the inside where I got rid of the tape. I'm gonna go begin putting the strips of paper in here like that. I'm gonna make sure to fix it into place and then put another piece over here. And I'm just gonna glue these onto the other side. And there we go. Then I'm gonna take my hot glue. Then I'm gonna take the side piece I'm using and just put it right there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side off camera. This is what I have so far for the upper torso. I'm quite satisfied with it now. Obviously there's a huge gap in here, but I'm planning on giving her clothes in the future, so I'm not going to do anything about this. But if you want, you can build around the shoulder if you choose to make a joint of this type, just to make it more seamless. But now I'm going to make this tiny triangle piece that'll go onto the middle part of the shoulder joint. So to start out with, I cut 4 pieces of poster board. I'm going to take 2 of them and curve them in one direction. I'm going to be making a triangle shape that curves slightly. I'm going to go ahead and take a pair of scissors and cut these both out at the same time. curve them again. I'm gonna go prepare the other two pieces and curve them as well. I'm gonna take some super glue and a toothpick and just rub some on the inside of the triangles I cut out. Then I'm going to put them onto the other cutout piece, making sure that the curve is on the same orientation. And then I'm going to keep the curve, and I'm going to keep curving so that when it dries, it keeps that curved shape. If you want, you can even use this shoulder joint to curve the piece onto. Once that dries, I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. Put the super glue on the edges just to make it more durable. Gonna go leave that to dry. Then I'm gonna go ahead and cut a strip of paper that's going to be as thick as this middle piece of the shoulder joint, so something like this could work. Then I'm going to fold this onto itself several times till I have this thickness, which is like 1 or 2 millimeters thick. I'm gonna go ahead and unfold this, prepare some more super glue, and start putting it onto the piece of paper, just like that. Then I'm going to slightly curve it, and for this one, you should definitely use the curve of the shoulder joint to curve this into place. I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of the paper out. And once I have this piece, I'm just going to glue it onto the middle part of the shoulder joint, just like that. And I'm gonna put a bit of super glue on top as well. Then put the curved shoulder piece on top. And if you did this right, it shouldn't interfere with the rotation of the joint. And there we go. And here's the conclusion to this part of the tutorial. This is what you should have, or at least something close to it. As you can see, we have the upper chest over here, have a ball joint on the inside connected to the neck, shoulder articulation over here, shoulder movement that's not obstructed, and we got a ball joint down here for the stomach. Woohoo!